Chapter 34. A Genius in 1 Second Remembers Love? Speak Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The soft and distant sound of an electronic clock rang out. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. The busy and inefficient daytime had once again opened its curtains. Luo Nan waited for a long time for the warm-hearted person to not arrive. He saw that the few thugs who had been knocked down had more or less recovered. He didn't want to clean up this mess, so he simply turned around and left. He didn't ask who was targeting him in the end. On one hand, he didn't believe that these thugs truly understood the inside story. On the other hand, he looked at the needleless syringe that had fallen to the ground and the special solution inside. He had a rough guess. Luo Nan sat in the classroom. He didn't listen to a single word of the teacher's lecture in class. The notebook in front of him was spread open. It was an abstract symbol drawn with a fluorescent pen. He utilized the color adjustment function to turn the lines into a dark red color. There was practically no difference from what was displayed in the fixed space. Luo Nan stared at the symbol on the notebook. It naturally corresponded with the burning wraith. The symbol was very marvelous. When Luo Nan tried to use it as the core to restore the burning wraith's concrete image, he inexplicably felt that any stroke would be superfluous. These dozen or so lines intertwined and coiled. They already contained all of the burning wraith's special characteristics. They were packed to the brim. There was simply no way to start. Luo Nan held the pen in his hand, but he didn't. He held it in until his heart was uncomfortable. He simply stopped demanding perfection. He casually sketched the lines. His mind was pondering the reason for the appearance of the abstract symbol. The burning wraith had been besieged and exterminated on the warship. This was a matter without a doubt. But the symbol that had appeared on the chains of his own visualization was real. Luo Nan thought over and over again. There was only one reason. The heavily chained crow had once analyzed the mysteries of the burning wraith's core layer when it was controlling the burning wraith. Even though the burning wraith had been exterminated, its core characteristics still left traces on the chains. Possessed a certain function. Then the warning of the crisis this morning wasn't from the heavily chained crow. It was from this symbol that originated from the burning wraith. This was because the burning wraith was extremely sensitive to fear, ruthlessness, and other negative emotions. It was able to borrow these emotions for its own use. It was precisely because of its specialization. Luo Nan also felt that the existence of the symbol was a bit stronger than it was in the beginning after the clash just now. Its strength seemed to be continuously recovering. Could it be that the burning wraith could rely on the symbol to resurrect? Luo Nan's mind stirred slightly. If this was true, then it couldn't be any better. The battle prowess of the burning wraith had already been completely revealed on the warship. If he had such a protector, why would he need to fear those campus thugs? Even if he went back to the professional association, he would have one more trump card and it would be much easier. Was there any way to speed up the recovery of the burning wraith? Luo Nan suddenly felt that the tip of his pen was a bit rough. He looked at the notebook once more and saw that the perfectly fine abstract symbol had already been drawn into a nondescript state. Just like the burning wraith, the comparison was completely wrong. However, he seemed to be able to continue drawing. Luo Nan's interest was instantly piqued by Luo Nan's inexplicable inspiration. Luo Nan did subtraction most of the time when he drew. All of the structure, lines, and shading arrangements were simplified. All this was done for the sake of highlighting the most core characteristics of the material. In his memory, the only time he did addition was when he achieved the breakthrough of "My heart's a prison." At that time he only had an abstract concept, but he didn't have the corresponding image. It was precisely through his continuous sprinkling of inspiration and filling in the details that he built a temporary grand structure, from which he extracted the heavily chained crow. The current situation was a bit similar to yesterday's. He didn't have that much inspiration, but as long as he had a clear general direction, the relevant details and clues were still quite considerable. For example, the needleless syringe. For example, the taser gun. For example, those hoodlums. Luo Nan continued to look at the clumsy sketch, tinkering here and there. A certain image had been buried deep in the bottom of his heart, out of shape, but now it became more and more clear. What finally appeared on the notebook was a group of blurry buildings, but it was vaguely similar to the regional structure of Acumen College. The drawing was sloppy and blurry. Anyone who looked at it would probably be baffled. They would just treat it as a clumsy and unfinished sketch. But Luo Nan knew that this drawing was already finished. It was already filled with all of his inspiration and known information. It also revealed the most important answer. In the core region where the abstract symbol was located, a silhouette of a person was formed in the end. It was a fellow who appeared fierce in appearance but was weak in heart. He used exaggerated body movements to conceal the fear in his heart. Also, Luo Nan stared fixedly at the drawing. A layer of fiery light seemed to flow above the dark red lines. He was illuminated by the fiery light and became a bit dazed. It was like the feeling of alienation between his mind and body before and after the out-of-body experience. But under this sort of state, the blurry information on the drawing suddenly became clear. The target was approximately 3 kilometers away. It was somewhere southwest of the campus. The corresponding building of the school was the medical department. Luo Nan was stupefied when the clear information scrambled to jump into his brain. Could it be that this was the technique of a psychic? It was simply like sleepwalking. He randomly pieced together all sorts of elements, but in the end he was able to obtain a relatively clear answer. But he didn't know how those true psychics worked. Oh, if it was the medical department, Luo Nan suddenly remembered that he had an appointment for a physical examination yesterday. Fine, it was already past. However, the memories always appeared in a chain. Luo Nan remembered that when he logged onto the Secret Star forums yesterday, there was a netizen called Yuling who was also affected by the burning wraith. He said that he brought his wife along for a physical examination. Luo Nan didn't know if he found anything or not. Luo Nan really wanted to collect information related to the burning wraith. His flexible screen was broken, so he used his wristband to connect to the miniature projector on his desk. He connected to the external network and went to the Secret Star forums to look at the news. Luo Nan nearly didn't recognize the forum the moment he logged onto it. The entire forum was filled with a solemn and heavy gray color. There was no other color. The central interface turned into a dark black hole horizon, and the theme was, "The exploration has not ended, but the souls of heroes are not far away. Soul Concentration Memorial Post." Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment. He opened the post and the first thing he saw was an excerpt of news. The general idea was, a couple who lived in the R&D district had gone to the hospital for a checkup yesterday afternoon. Due to an argument, the wife was suspected to have a psychotic episode. She lost her mind and stabbed her husband to death. At the bottom there were thick, bold black words. Be alert. Be alert. Be alert. The influence of the nightmare event has far exceeded our expectations. Everyone must be on high alert and think of every possible way to find out the truth. Luo Nan stared at this news all the way until the end of class. The students dispersed and headed to the next class location. Luo Nan also stood up and walked out of the classroom. However, he didn't go in the direction of a classroom. Instead, he went in the direction of the medical department, which was 3 kilometers away. However, not long after he walked out of the classroom, he felt slightly dizzy. Double monthly ticket. If you think this chapter is interesting, please support it. You can also vote for it. 100 cross-court coins monthly ticket, 500 vertical coins, 10,000 cross-court coins, 100,000 cross-court coins to be the leader of the alliance. Chapter 35. A Genius in 1 Second Remembers Love. Speak Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Luo Nan stood firm with a single step, enduring the initial period of dizziness. After a while he tried to move his hands and flexed his toes. Sure enough, he discovered that some of his fingers and joints were sore and numb. His entire body felt as if he had drunk too much alcohol. His reaction sensitivity had inexplicably dropped by a level. Moreover, the state of a spring of ideas and flashes of inspiration were no longer present. It was as if his brain was covered by a layer of membrane. He was drowsy and wanted to sleep. Luo Nan didn't panic. He just sighed, it's still here. Since he was detained on the warship yesterday, he only came out in the wee hours of the morning. It was impossible for him to concoct drugs again. Well, with the state of his drug reserves, there was nothing he could do even if he went home. Therefore, the daily work of concocting drugs that he had painstakingly maintained for nearly 5 years had finally come to an end. The discomfort he felt just now mostly came from the abnormal activity of his nervous system. It could be considered a kind of drug withdrawal reaction. Luo Nan had been mentally prepared for this after the problem with his drug channel. He was also very vigilant when he accelerated his metabolism yesterday. He just didn't expect that this problem would only erupt now that the stage of tight defense and slow defense had already passed. Luo Nan swayed as he walked a few steps. He felt fine. He could barely hold on. But he didn't need to look in the mirror to know that his face was certainly terrible. Well, now he had a legitimate reason to go to the medical department. 20 minutes later, Luo Nan strolled slowly into the medical department. This was the medical department of Acumen College. It was also a rather famous general hospital in Xia City. It was open to the students of the college for free. But before entering, one must first make an appointment online and have their identity verified. Luo Nan's criteria for making an appointment with a doctor was very simple. He would choose the one with the longest queue. After making the appointment, he ignored the information on the appointment form and strolled around the medical department. It looked like he was wandering aimlessly, but his target senses were already extremely clear when he stepped into the main building of the medical department. It should be around 70 meters to the east. That was the inpatient department. Luo Nan could even feel that the target's heart was overflowing with resentment and fear as he got closer and closer. The target's heart was coiled and roasted in an extremely warped manner. There was also an unending stream of distracting emotions mixed in. It was like a barbecue steak that was endlessly sprinkled with seasoning. Why was he thinking this? Right when he was baffled by his own thoughts, his feet began to sway slightly. The shaking soon became violent. The doors and windows of the medical department creaked. Not again. Amidst the commotion, the patients, students, and professors of the medical department rushed out of the buildings like ants moving. In just a few minutes, they filled up the central courtyard. Love, go, small, say, Netka. The hospital's emergency escape routes were also opened, ready to evacuate the critically ill patients at any time. But that was all an earthquake could do. The regular earthquake lasted for about half a minute, followed by 2 aftershocks and then silence. Curses could be heard from all over the courtyard. The seismic activity in Xia City over the past half-month had caused special public places like the hospital to be jittery at the slightest sound. Every time there was an earthquake, they had to evacuate the people according to the regulations, and only then would they start the treatment business. Going back and forth, they could be considered lucky that there were no medical accidents. Luo Nan walked a few steps within the bustling and chaotic stream of people before suddenly coming to a stop. This was because he sensed that his target, who had been in the inpatient department, was moving at high speed. A few seconds later, an electric sightseeing car drove out from the inpatient department on the east side. It passed through the pedestrian walkway, and there was a young man dressed in casual clothes on the car. There were also a few strong men who looked like bodyguards. Luo Nan's gaze locked onto the young man's face. He recognized this person, so it wasn't unexpected at all. Yes, it was Li Xueqing, who had been suffocated and fainted by Luo Nan's hypnosis technique yesterday. It looked like Li Xueqing's condition wasn't all that great. His face was bruised and swollen, and his expression was dispirited, but he was also extremely anxious. He chattered endlessly to the bodyguard next to him, and he even fiercely slapped the bodyguard's shoulder and back when he spoke intensely. He gave off the feeling that he was a first-rate neurotic. Li Xueqing, in this state, naturally couldn't see the great enemy within the stream of people on the side of the road. Instead, Luo Nan heard his own name from the few words that leaked out. Sure enough. Who was this person? Luo Nan cast his gaze over, but a sudden change occurred before he could think of what to do. A dark red glowing mist suddenly soared from Li Xueqing's body. It coiled and transformed within the interweaving shadows of the medical department building and the trees on the side of the road. In the end, it took the form of a demonic wraith with a human form. No one saw this scene except for Luo Nan. His pupils contracted slightly. He stood still on the spot, not moving an inch. There was probably no one who was more familiar with this thing than Luo Nan. The burning wraith. It was another burning wraith. So it turned out that there wasn't just one burning wraith. And the most inconceivable thing was that Luo Nan didn't feel astonishment, vigilance, nervousness, and the like in this instant. Instead, it was a feeling of hunger. A feeling of hunger that couldn't be suppressed. The planted grain was ripe. The cooked dish was done. It looked quite delicious. Come, let's eat to our heart's content. Crash. The heavily chained crow vibrated with a cry. Its sound was like a sharp needle that fiercely pierced into the space between Luo Nan's eyebrows. Luo Nan shivered fiercely. Whatever delicacy, whatever hunger, all shattered in an instant. On the contrary, this brand new burning wraith before his eyes radiated a scorching power from the mental plane. It came pouring down towards Luo Nan. This power was clearly filled with hunger and greed. The wraith flew and pounced down towards Luo Nan. Luo Nan still didn't move an inch. He was deep in thought. The intense instinct of greed that came from this burning wraith was declaring something to him. At the same time, he was stimulated by the rapidly approaching threat. The rattling of the chains resounded in his mind, layer upon layer. The power that came from the body-mind format accumulated endlessly through this form until it reached a certain upper limit. In the next moment, the boundary between reality and illusion was torn apart noiselessly. The heavily chained crow leaped out from the space between Luo Nan's eyebrows. It collided head-on with the pouncing burning wraith and struck inside in an instant. Buzz. A miserable shriek that only existed on the mental plane shone into reality for an instant. The hundreds of doctors, nurses, students, and patients all had a moment of absent-mindedness. But soon this fuzzy feeling disappeared without a trace. This was because the abstract symbol at the front of the heavily chained crow lit up with a lustrous radiance. The dark red radiance illuminated the originally dark interior of the burning wraith and released some sort of power. It transformed into a rapidly contracting whirlpool in an instant. The power of the whirlpool was extremely powerful. In the blink of an eye, this new understanding of the burning wraith no longer took shape. A large portion of its body was sucked into the abstract symbol by the whirlpool, increasing the brightness of the symbol. There was also a small portion that simply collapsed and dissipated in the void. The bodyguards' cries of alarm rang out from the electric sightseeing bus that just brushed past them at practically the same time. Li Xueqing, who had just been violently lashing out, suddenly fainted in the bus. He was unconscious. A small commotion appeared in the courtyard. Li Xueqing was hastily carried off the bus by the bodyguards and laid flat on the lawn to the side. His pupils were rolled back and he was foaming at the mouth. His face was ashen like a corpse. Luo Nan turned his eyes to see the life force that belonged to Li Xueqing. It was like the floodgates had been opened and a flood was released. A large amount of it leaked outwards. It transformed into wisps of light smoke on a level that the naked eye couldn't detect. It followed the collapsing burning wraith and was drawn into the void vortex. Luo Nan's eyebrows locked tightly. His mind stirred slightly and the heavily chained crow retracted. The dark red abstract symbol also retracted into the space between his eyebrows. The void vortex disappeared. The process of Li Xueqing's life force leaking out came to a screeching halt, but he had already sunk into a state of deep unconsciousness. Luo Nan stared at the unconscious Li Xueqing on the lawn with a grave expression. Victory was like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, but he didn't feel happy at all. Luo Nan shifted his gaze away from Li Xueqing's body after a moment. He turned towards the nearby crowd. Some people were watching curiously. Some people shot a glance and then completely ignored him. There were also doctors and nurses who rushed over. What couldn't happen in the hospital? Everything was a change in reality that people could understand. But who knew that on a plane that they couldn't touch, there were incorporeal wraith arrogantly coming and going, eroding people's hearts and sucking away their essence and energy. Luo Nan was one. Li Xueqing was another. Perhaps the soul couple that had a human tragedy happen were also of this type. How many more? Just how many demons had been released from that roar in the R&D district? And how many had taken form and plotted to take human lives like this? Not only that, but there was clearly competition and devouring relationships between the burning wraith. They formed a faintly discernible web of a food chain. Luo Nan stared blankly at the clamoring courtyard. Is this still the world I know? Double monthly vote. If you think this chapter is brilliant, then support me a bit. You can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly vote, 500 crosstalk monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk monthly vote to be the Alliance Master. Chapter 36. Genius 1 second. Remember love, go. Speak net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The office of the Xia City branch of the International Science Exploration Association was located on the 18th floor of the Shangding Triplex office building in the Lilan district of Xia City. The location was a bit lower, only 50 meters above the ground. It was the limit of low-altitude public transportation for civilians. However, the rental prices for the floors below were quite cheap. The Wilderness Explorers branch of the association rented all the space from the 1st to the 17th floor in one breath. They remodeled and opened up many spacious areas for the activities of the members. From the perspective of the ordinary employees working in the association, the Wilderness Explorers were a bunch of lunatics who had money but nowhere to spend it. They could rent an excellent location in the central business district with the money for remodeling. They could do whatever they wanted. Why did they have to spend so much energy remodeling while the vast majority of the facilities were still unused? The most typical example was the luxurious round conference room on the bottom 3 floors. It could accommodate over 1,000 people discussing business here, but it had been used less than 10 times in the 10 years since it was built. Today the conference room finally opened once more. Several hundred people entered one after another. The employees of the association, who usually had nothing better to do, were stupefied. How could Xia City have this many wilderness explorers? The employees couldn't see the organizational materials of the conference. They didn't know the contents of the conference, the time schedule, and so on. They just felt that the conference was very long. They went in the morning. It was past lunchtime, but it still didn't end. No one came out to avoid the earthquake in the middle. Speaking of earthquakes, the white-collar workers working nearby discovered that the number of earthquakes they felt seemed to be much more than the number of earthquakes reported by the Earthquake Bureau. They felt at least 10 or 20 earthquakes. Even so, the Wilderness Explorers still calmly held the conference. They really were brave. September 28, 2096, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The interior of the round conference room was dim. A small half of the lighting equipment that simulated skylight had been turned on all year round. The shadow that spread out on a large scale covered the messy conference room and seeped into the hearts of the participants. Zhang Yingying gently grasped Susan's plump hand. The body temperature of the two combined, causing the chill in the dusky darkness to slightly retreat. Susan was muttering some words that no one could understand. The injury on her shoulder was still faintly aching. 2 centimeters more and her carotid artery would have been torn. Ouyang Chen, the president of the Xia City branch of the Wilderness Explorers Association, stood on the podium in the center of the conference room. He wore a well-ironed suit, a bow tie, and a pair of vintage glasses. He looked like a refined scholar. He looked around at the faintly discernible faces under the dim light and calmly said, "Now the identification is over." There were 429 people in the meeting, and 420 people participated in the final meeting. The 9 people who had been deducted had already become corpses. Some of their corpses could not even be found. The air in the conference room had frozen. I will be the one to report the relevant situation in this meeting. I have also invited Quantum Corporation's Xia City Area Executive Director, Mr. Hu Yuli, to give an in-depth explanation. At the side of the podium, Mr. Hu Yuli, who was also a powerful businessman, was pale. He tried his best to remain calm and nodded slightly to all sides. This was all he could do. Ouyang Chen adjusted the frame of his glasses and began his speech. The projector behind him began to operate at the same time, displaying the ruins of the R&D area. First of all, a brief explanation. Quantum Corporation, the government, and the military have jointly conducted research on the mutant in the Xia City R&D area's mutant laboratory. This project has been going on for 2 years now. And roughly half a month ago, Quantum Corporation switched the test subject. This is a special species. It is a rarely seen parasitic state of the Darksider life form towards the mutant. Its code name is human-faced arachnid. A large number of pictures flashed on the projection. They were all related files that had been preserved in the laboratory. The participants stared coldly at all of this and continued to listen. Yesterday, which is September 27th, around 5:13 in the morning, a facility operator in the laboratory was controlled by the Darksider life form. He forcefully destroyed the power supply. And before the backup power supply was activated, the Darksider life form drove the mutant in an attempt to escape the laboratory. Quantum Corporation carried out a control of the situation. At 5:19 the mutant was killed. The Darksider life form separated from its host. At 524, Quantum Corporation killed the Darksider life form. But before this, the Darksider life form used a method that we are still unable to understand to release some sort of virus. Ouyang paused and repeated his emphasis, virus. For now we can only say this. According to statistics, with Quantum Corporation's laboratory in the R&D area as the center, the virus has spread as far as 520 kilometers away. It has covered the entire metropolitan area of Xia City and all of the satellite cities. The center has a radius of 10 kilometers. That is the core area of the virus infection. The number of people infected is the greatest. Preliminary statistics show that over 70% of the infected are mainly laboratory personnel and some residents. Beyond 10 kilometers, the rate of infection rapidly drops. According to preliminary research statistics, the virus currently has 3 characteristics. First, outside of the core area, the rate of infection among the general populace isn't high. We have yet to discover a case. But for ability users it is very bad. The current rate is 9 out of 1,000. I believe that it should be related to the method of transmission. After all, ability users are far more sensitive than ordinary people. The atmosphere in the conference room became even more oppressive. This 9 out of 1,000 infection rate was calculated using human lives. Today's participants made up nearly half of the registered personnel. And in the identification just now, there were 4 infected people who caused the other 5 casualties. Second, there are many carriers. The rate of infection isn't high. In order to activate this virus, special conditions are needed. An intense change in mood, especially a negative mood, is the most obvious cause. According to Quantum Corporation's internal experiment report, the survival time of the virus in the human body is approximately between 8 to 18 hours. During this time, if the virus is maintained in a calm state, then it will be thoroughly annihilated. But if there is a negative mood, then the survival time will be greatly extended. Moreover, there is an extremely high probability of activation. The concrete data has yet to be determined. Third, everyone has seen it just now. The activated virus will absorb the energy of the host's blood and energy, transforming into a Darksider life form. And these Darksider life forms will devour each other, fuse, and continuously grow stronger. Every time they grow stronger, their form and power level will draw closer to their emitter. Ouyang tossed aside the explanation of the situation and turned to look at Hu Yuli. His gaze was cold and clear behind his flat glasses. Therefore we must ask, is that human-faced arachnid truly dead? When these Darksider life forms absorb enough nutrients and devour and fuse, does this represent a new life for it? Does Quantum Corporation have any research that supports or touches upon this situation? Hu Yuli could only shake his head. The current research hasn't gone deep enough. We really don't understand. He had forcefully evaded Ouyang question, but it didn't mean that he had passed the test. Ouyang question was just the beginning. Soon, a voice came from within the conference room. What's the matter with the news of the stolen medicine? This is completely different from the rumors that you guys released before. Double monthly vote. If you think this chapter is brilliant, then support me a bit. You can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk coins monthly vote, 500 crosstalk coins monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk coins, 100,000 crosstalk coins. Alliance Master. Chapter 37. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? Talk.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Hu Yuli had a bitter smile on his face. We really did report that the laboratory drugs were stolen, but that was done by staff members taking advantage of the chaos. We didn't realize the gravity of the situation at first and focused our attention on searching for the drugs. Reality has proven that this direction was completely wrong. Really? Zhang Yingying grimaced in pain after accidentally twisting her wound below the stage. However, she didn't believe Quantum Corporation's words so easily. On one hand, she trusted her own intelligence channels. On the other hand, she didn't trust Quantum Corporation's usual methods. She spoke to Susan in a low voice. These people have always been cold and aloof. They rely on the fact that they have burners and the deep blue platform in their hands. They've always ignored us, but today they've kowtowed to the ground. Susan nodded and then shook her head. Let's see what the president says. Hu Yuli's explanation certainly wouldn't convince the crowd. The repeated doubts from below the stage made this big shot of business sweat. He was gradually overwhelmed. At this time Ouyang lightly slapped the stage. The sound wasn't loud, but it made the entire venue quickly quiet down. Everyone, since we don't believe in Quantum Corporation's explanation, then let's not waste time on it. If you want an answer, then go find it yourself. Since Quantum Corporation wishes for the society to intervene in this matter and help them deal with the spread of the virus, then they should display a corresponding sincerity. Of course. Hu Yuli didn't care what the request was. He would first agree to it. Ouyang gazed below the stage and calmly said, "The society's activities aren't compulsory. Organizing activities requires the approval of over half of the members. Then right now I'll talk about the reasons for supporting the activities. It's very simple. According to reliable information, this human-faced arachnid was the first living experimental material that was transported out of that door." There weren't many people below the stage who reacted. Door? Which door? On the other hand, Hu Yuli's pupils instantly dilated. His entire body rose up, but just as his but left his seat, Ouyang cold gaze swept over him, extinguishing his sudden impulse. He also paralyzed in his seat, unable to get up again. It was also at this time that the attendees finally digested the most crucial information. Suddenly, a rumble exploded. Someone jumped up and asked in a loud voice, "Ouyang, which door are you talking about?" Ouyang adjusted his glasses again. The origin of the mutants, the starting point of the new era. Thanks to Quantum Holdings, we can finally lock onto the door that we've always suspected but never confirmed. Where? We can confirm that it's in the south-central part of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. The Society hopes that Quantum Holdings can provide specific coordinates and information. Of course, this will require further discussion with us. Now let's get back to business. Ouyang gaze swept across everyone's faces. Among those present there are martial artists, wizards with bloodlines, priests and monks. In this new era we are all awakened ones. In the past 50 years our strength has been growing and our abilities have become stronger. This is partly due to our own efforts, but there is also that inexplicable X factor. Why is it that after 2059, the limits of power that were originally insurmountable were suddenly lifted? Why is there such a huge gap between us and normal people? Why are the legendary abilities appearing one by one in our bodies? What have we paid? What did you gain? Was there an equal sign between effort and gain? Are we truly in control of our own destiny, or is there some unknown God controlling everything? We thirst to know this secret. We've always been searching for its source, but we've never been able to find an answer. And now, the path that seemed to have been severed has suddenly been swept clean of obstacles. It's laid out before us once again. I don't want to miss this opportunity. I believe that everyone is the same. A rumbling noise rang through the venue, but Ouyang words remained flat and calm. Originally, I set the code name for this society's activity as breaking the net. The invisible devil has woven a large net in an attempt to prey in this metropolis. We need to sever it. But now I want to call it the signpost. We found nothing in the past few decades of exploration. Until the appearance of formatting theory, which opened the first page of humanity's pursuit of individual evolution. This is the theory of an ordinary person. We, as awakened ones, have fallen behind. It's inevitable that we'll be a bit embarrassed. Love go little say netku as awakened ones we need to speed up our pace. We should naturally be the guides. We need to seize every opportunity to bravely explore. We need to tell others what the road ahead is like. We need to tell them where humanity should go. The signpost is with us. The glory will forever be in our hands. The sound of the trolley arriving woke Luo Nan up. Once the withdrawal reaction was activated, it wouldn't be easy to get over it. Luo Nan's class schedule was damned. There was also the heaven and earth great shift type of curriculum arrangement. Luo Nan switched classrooms for his 5 major courses in a single day. He crossed 4 teaching buildings and traveled back and forth between the northern and southern campuses. He didn't feel it before when his body was in a good state. But after running today, Luo Nan was already in a daze. He sat on the school trolley and entered a half-asleep state in a daze. He slapped his cheeks to raise his spirits and slowly got off the trolley. Right now it was 3:40 in the afternoon. It was time for club activities. Luo Nan's destination was the Precision Electronics Interest Society. The Precision Electronics Interest Society invited experts from various electronics manufacturing companies to conduct maintenance teaching. It was also a heaven for enthusiasts. Luo Nan's goal was naturally to repair the damaged flexible e-ink screen. He was used to getting damaged tools. He felt restricted everywhere. It was even worse than the withdrawal reaction. However, his luck seemed to have been used up during the psychic drawing in the morning. The Precision Electronics Interest Society had already made the maintenance teaching business soar. Business was booming. Today they invited a super expert in the industry. Maintenance workers, enthusiasts and help seekers filled the spacious business hall to the brim. He squeezed through the crowd for 20 minutes just to get a reservation number. In the end, Luo Nan really couldn't stand the crowded flow of people in the hall. He hid outside and breathed in the fresh air. But the dizziness and excessively keen senses invaded him. The afternoon sun pierced through the shade of the trees and fell on Luo Nan's face. This was the first time he felt that the autumn sun was actually this hot. Half of his cheeks were practically burning. He could even smell the burnt smell of roasted flesh. This was, without a doubt, an illusion. Luo Nan stopped at the side of the road and stood like a nail. His lips slightly squirmed as the 16 words of mantra flowed from his mouth to his heart. They flowed like an icy spring, gradually washing away and submerging his blurred and dazed thoughts. A shadow streaked across his half-lidded eyelids just as he was feeling better. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes, startling the waving person. The waving person took half a step back and lowered his elbow, blocking between the two people. The person realized that he had overreacted after finishing his action. He laughed awkwardly. "Classmate, are you all right? Double monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant. Support me a bit, you can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly vote, 500 crosstalk monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk monthly vote to be the leader of the alliance." Chapter 38. A Genius in a Second. Remember love? This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Actually, Luo Nan's vision was blurry for 2 seconds after he lifted his eyelids. When he completely recovered, he saw a wall. The person in front of him was tall and strong. He was taller than Luo Nan by a full head. His back just happened to block the sunlight, causing his entire face to be hidden in the shadows. It was a bit frightening to suddenly see him. Looking at him from a different angle, this person's muscular body was supported by a rather simple and honest face. He also had the youthfulness of a student. Not even a few strands of hair grew on his face. The way he laughed with his mouth wide open was quite likable. Luo Nan recalled a bit and knew that his deadpan face and the image of him muttering to himself were too eye-catching. This person waved his hand to probe him. It was indeed out of good intentions. He responded with a smile. "It's nothing. I was just a bit distracted." Distracted? The person immediately revealed a Shanghai smile that said, "You may be stubborn, but we're both men. I understand." He then introduced himself. "It's good that you're fine. I'm Shuelei. I'm from the River Wu district. 10th grade. Luo Nan. I'm also from the River Wu district. 10th grade. Huh. You're also in the River Wu district? I'm on Twin River Road. Where are you? Blue Bay Community. I just moved there not too long ago. That's not too far. What a coincidence." Shuelei clapped his hands and laughed heartily. "It's fate for us to meet on different paths. You can just call me Leicester. This must be the path of chivalry." Luo Nan choked on the person's Wuxia style of speech. He didn't know if it was intentional or not. He was actually speechless for a time. However, Shuelei's big mouth was completely capable of holding up the situation. "I'll just call you Nanster. Fate is fate. I actually walked past you just now. I was just listening to the resonance of your breathing. It hummed like you were chanting. It was like breathing, but it wasn't. I saw your expression. I'm afraid something went wrong with your training. Hey, it's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." Luo Nan's mind stirred when he heard the words breathing, training and so on. He sized up Shuelei's body. He noticed that what Shuelei was wearing was actually a little strange. It looked like the training clothes of a fitness center. It was light gray in color, and the logo on the left side of his chest was a 3-legged cauldron. It was very memorable. Shuelei noticed where Luonan's gaze was directed and puffed out his chest. This is the training uniform of our dojo. Not bad, right? It's you? Luonan didn't answer the question. It was probably because a certain memory had surged up from the bottom of his heart. The burly figure and the gray coat looked familiar no matter how he looked at it. Shuelei didn't understand. You know me. Luonan reminded him. This morning outside the main changing room in the South 2 district. It's you. Shuelei also recognized Luonan, but his reaction was very odd. He first shot a glance behind Luonan before speaking in a low voice. You should be fine. That group of people should have dispersed. Yes. Many thanks for lending a helping hand. Luonan also expressed his thanks in the style of the chivalrous path. Sure enough, the burly classmate in front of him was the warm-hearted person who helped him out this morning. In the huge campus that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people, the chances of them meeting again were too small. It's nothing. I just happened to be passing by. Shuelei waved his hand over and over, but he didn't say more than 2 sentences. His face was full of excitement. Nanster, I can see that your body is a bit weak, but your hands are quite nimble. You're very particular about where you hit. Have you practiced before? Shuelei even gesticulated as he spoke. He was just short of touching Luonan's body to demonstrate. Luonan didn't know if he should block it or not. A voice suddenly called out from behind Shuelei at this time. Leicester, what are you doing? Shuelei's body froze when he heard this. He withdrew his hands with a swish and put on a smile. Then he turned his head. Xiaolin, I know a classmate here. A tall and skinny girl walked over a few seconds later. She naturally hooked her arm around Shuelei's crook, making their relationship clear. Not to mention anything else, their sizes were quite compatible. Shuelei promptly introduced them. This is my girlfriend, Xiaolin. She's 1 year older than us. This is Luonan. He also lives in the River Wu district around Blue Bay. Luonan smiled and nodded, not saying much. Xiaolin had short and thin hair. She wore jeans paired with a simple white top. She looked very straightforward and efficient. The outline of her face was extremely clear. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised, giving her a shrewd and fierce look. It was easy to tell who was stronger and who was weaker compared to the simple and honest Shuelei. However, Xiaolin was extremely mellow when it came to dealing with people. She called Luonan Jr. and greeted him with a smile. She grasped her attitude extremely well. Luonan saw that the two were together, so he didn't want to disturb them any further. He prepared to leave, but he certainly had to solemnly thank Shuelei for his kindness in helping him. About this morning, Luonan had just opened his mouth when Shuelei gave him a wild look. Luonan was stunned for a moment. He then saw Xiaolin frown to the side. He knew that there was some hindrance involved. It wasn't suitable to speak openly. He thought for a bit and simply extended his hand. You guys go do what you need to do. Leicester, let's add each other as friends. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Shuelei chuckled as he extended his hand and touched Luonan's wristband. Buzz buzz buzz. Buzz buzz buzz. Their wristbands vibrated at practically the same time the moment they touched. The momentum was astonishing. Oh my. Twin swords harmonize. Hey. Shuelei cried out in surprise. In the end he let out a miserable groan as Xiaolin fiercely pinched him at the waist. Luonan confirmed that this was a high level of authority transmission of information. The notification vibrated. He raised his wrist to confirm. The sender was the professional advisor of the 10th years, Li Mingda. He wanted Luonan to come to his office at 5. It was probably because of yesterday's truancy and absence from exams. Shuelei finally reacted to the situation. After confirming the information, he grimaced in pain. Nothing good can come out of a summons from Elder Mingda. Luonan raised his head to look at him. You too? Shuelei blinked his eyes. What? After a moment of stupefaction, Shuelei immediately came to a sudden realization. He looked at Luonan again with the meaning of fellow Daoist. You didn't join a society either? Luonan immediately confirmed that his previous judgment was slightly off. Right now Shuelei was already complaining to himself. He spread his hands. I really want to join a society, but I've gone to those martial arts clubs and fitness clubs. They're far worse than our Daoguan. It's really boring. Oh right, let's go together? My time is 5 o'clock. Shuelei was overjoyed. I'm also at 5 o'clock. Let's say we're fated. Let's go together. Qin Xiaolin thought of something to the side. She asked Luonan, you didn't join a society. So you're a new student who just got into the school? Luonan nodded in response. Qin Xiaolin's eyes suddenly lit up. Junior, which high school did you go to? Like Leicester, the River Wu Experimental School? Oh, I went to 6th High. Xia City 6th High? A famous school. But it's quite far from the River Wu district. I used to live in the Nade district. I only moved to the River Wu district after I got into Acumen College. Nade district? That's already the core district. The houses there are all sky-high prices. It's all right. Luonan was a bit unable to handle Qin Xiaolin's questioning of his family's assets. He wanted to retreat even more. But Qin Xiaolin already smiled and suggested, it's almost 4 o'clock right now. With advisorly waiting we can't do anything. Why don't we go sit at the cold drink shop? You guys can go when it's time? Shuelei naturally agreed. Luonan looked at Shuelei and found it hard to refuse. He nodded and agreed. Double the monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant. Support me a bit, you can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly vote, 500 crosstalk monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk monthly vote to be the leader of the alliance. Chapter 39. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. There was a campus shopping mall nearby, and the leisure area inside was famous for its snacks and cold drinks. Classes had already ended, but it was still club activity time, so there were relatively fewer people. At least it was not as crowded as the Precision Electronics Interest Club. Luonan was still in the uncomfortable withdrawal period right now. He would avoid cold drinks and other stimulating foods if he could. However, he understood that Qin Xiaolin didn't invite him to sit down for a chat just to enjoy her delicious food. Sure enough, as soon as the service robot placed the snack platter on the table, Qin Xiaolin said to Shuelei, "Consultantly called you over this time. I won't mention anything else, but as long as it's related to the club, just deal with it casually. Don't say or agree to any substantive promises or operations." Shuelei was confused. What do you mean? Luonan knew that Qin Xiaolin's words were directed at him. However, this was not a good time to say anything. He raised his head and listened attentively. When Qin Xiaolin faced Shuelei, some words were easier to say. Of course it's because I'm afraid you'll be fooled. The school's clubs are too complicated. It's a three-way game between the school, the teachers, and the students. If you don't understand the situation, it'll be easy for you to suffer losses. She knew that she wouldn't be able to convince him after saying all this, so she decided to try to move his emotions instead. Anyway, I won't harm you, right? Shuelei could only nod. Qin Xiaolin turned to face Luonan. Junior, you need to know yourself and your enemy in everything. You need to plan before you make a move. Don't you agree? Luonan could only smile. Qin Xiaolin immediately followed up by saying, Junior, you've been here for nearly a month. You should know that Acumen College is essentially an experimental school. It's a combination of East and West. The atmosphere and methods are all different from previous schools. Many people who come here are more or less not used to it. This requires everyone to help and coordinate with each other. Actually, I suggest that you join the Mutual Aid Association. Mutual Aid Association? This school's student council has specially set up a mutual aid organization for students like you and Shuelei who are halfway into the school. The goal is to allow everyone to adapt to Acumen College's ecology and atmosphere as quickly as possible. There are many seniors in there who can impart their experiences to me and help me solve my problems. Really? Luonan was a bit embarrassed. He didn't really want to get involved in this sort of thing. Qin Xiaolin, on the other hand, was very enthusiastic. Let's not talk about anything else. Tonight is the annual Mutual Assistance Buffet party. Many seniors will be coming. Some of them have been in the academy for more than 7 years and are about to graduate. They have a lot of experience. Chatting when you have nothing to do can expand your network. Chatting when you have something to do can solve a lot of problems. Junior brother, you really shouldn't miss this opportunity. Luo student, you can't just buy chatting. We can, you can't, you can, you want. Right when Luo Nan was thinking about how to refuse, his wristband vibrated slightly. The reservation number of the Precision Electronics Interest Society was already a reminder. Luo Nan let out a breath of relief and raised his wrist. Senior, Luo, for my turn. My turn. We later. Yi. Qin sister. Shi Feng Dong. Yi. Qin. Yi time. Brother. Li. Shuelei reminded him from behind. Don't forget to go to Elder Mingda's place later. Luo Nan tossed the matter of the Mutual Help Society to the back of his mind and hurried back to the Precision Electronics Interest Society. Not long after, his number was called. He followed the small and exquisite guiding ball to the maintenance area. This place was much quieter than the lobby. He could see a few young students behind the maintenance desk. They were surrounding a middle-aged technician discussing some problems. Someone saw Luo Nan come in and looked at the reservation form. The flexible e-ink screen was damaged by external forces. The repair costs are high. It may not be completely restored. It's more appropriate to find a manufacturer to replace it. Luo Nan sat in front of the desk and whispered, "It's a piece of equipment." His words made over half of the people turn their heads. The person who was looking at the reservation form laughed. "It's amazing to be able to do something with the flexible e-ink screen. Why don't you fix it yourself? I see that this screen is from 5 years ago. It's the perfect time to upgrade it." Luo Nan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "That person isn't here anymore." "Oh, that's a pity." The middle-aged technician raised his head at this time. He looked like a very amiable person. He laughed. "Then let's take a look. If you have any good ideas, let's compare them." "Thank you, teacher." Luo Nan nodded in thanks. He removed the flexible e-ink screen from his notebook and passed it to the back of the maintenance desk. The middle-aged technician glanced at it and his eyes lit up a bit. "Jellyfish board? This isn't easy to do. Many external modules don't have space. Did they move a lot inside?" Dismantle the machine. Worker Zhai, you do it yourself." The students were all raring to go. Worker Zhai didn't decline. After all, a group of students who hadn't graduated had no idea how to dismantle a highly integrated electronic device like the flexible e-ink screen. Dismantling a flexible e-ink screen with a thickness of only 2 mm was definitely a job that required meticulous patience. Worker Zhai's gentle temperament was just right. As he dismantled the screen, he casually explained the main points and difficulties of dismantling the screen to the students. He explained the profound in simple terms. Even Luo Nan, who didn't know a thing about this, had some basic concepts as he listened. But as the dismantling progressed, Worker Zhai gradually stopped talking. His expression became more and more unsightly. He wasn't the only one. A few students saw that something was wrong. They began to whisper to each other. Worker Zhai really was patient. He spent a full half an hour to dismantle the entire flexible e-ink screen into 2 pieces, completely revealing the internal structure. Only then did he stop. At this time, the inspection equipment of the control desk naturally cut in and scanned the situation of each component. As the equipment displayed all sorts of data, the buzzing sounds of discussion grew louder. Finally, the student who took the job first couldn't help but say to Luo Nan, "Hey buddy. You didn't come here on purpose to mess things up, right?" Luo Nan was stunned. He didn't understand what Worker Zhai meant at all. "This jellyfish screen of yours hasn't moved a lot." "It hasn't moved at all." "Fine, you added a battery module, but the processor, the storage module, the signal transceiver module and the sensor are all missing. Do you normally use this board as a mirror?" "Impossible." Even though Luo Nan was a noob in electronics, he knew that the flexible screen was purely for decoration without a processor and storage module. It couldn't even be used as a mirror. Of course, this was impossible. He had been using it just fine yesterday. All sorts of software applications were unhindered. He had even drawn 2 sketches. How could it be for decoration? The problem was, there was a group of students in front of him. There was also a technical expert like Worker Zhai. Was there a need to lie to him? And the results on the inspection equipment were crystal clear. There was no falsehood whatsoever. Luonan was truly at a loss when faced with a dozen unfriendly gazes. You guys make way. Worker Zhai, who had been silent all this time, suddenly indicated to the students blocking the control desk to make way. He waited for the people in front of the control desk to clear out. Then he controlled the mechanical arm and carefully operated behind the open jellyfish screen. Several seconds later, a long thread like a spider's web was slowly pulled out from the twisting circuit. It swayed slightly with the breathing of the surrounding people. Chapter 40. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The long wire was actually not too long, about 7 or 8 centimeters, but compared to the fine circuit, it naturally felt different. Love go, smalt sake netku. As the long thread was pulled out, the attention of the group of students naturally shifted. Someone asked, "What is this?" Metal. It seems to be quite resilient. How did you get in? Did it exist before? Worker Zhai did not give an answer to the above question. As he looked at the actual object, he also looked at the scanning results of the machine. A moment later, he put on a thin film glove and removed the long thread from the mechanical arm. The weight isn't right. It's quite heavy. As he spoke, Worker Zhai prepared to place the long thread on an electronic scale at the side to weigh it. The group of students curiously gathered around him. Wait a moment. Luonan suddenly spoke. Everyone's gazes shifted to his face and he lowered his head slightly. I'm sorry. I won't repair it. His words instantly stirred up a hornet's nest. At the maintenance station, the club members were agitated. You did it on purpose, didn't you? C, he's really here to cause trouble? What grade are you in? I've already lifted the lid and you're still playing this game? Do you think precision electronics is a pushover? Luonan's expression didn't change. He repeated his previous words. I'm sorry. I've decided not to fix it. On one side were boiling emotions and on the other side was a stiff attitude. The two sides collided and it seemed like they were about to intensify. After a moment of shock, Worker Zhai stepped forward to smooth things over. If you don't want to fix it, then don't fix it. After all, it's someone else's stuff. Love go, smalt said neck. I don't think the student is going to make fun of us. Anyway, I'm sure he won't be short of labor fees. Worker Zhai tried to lighten his mood by cracking a cold joke, but no one supported him. Luonan gave thanks from the bottom of his heart. He bowed once more. Thank you, Worker Zhai. I'm sorry about today. Worker Zhai was all smiles as he tried his best to calm the members around him. Alright, I'll restore the machine first. It didn't take long. However, there are some tricks in it. You guys have to pay attention. Luonan really admired this man's concern, but he had no choice but to remind him, Worker Zhai, that thread. Worker Zhai immediately understood and chuckled. To be honest, I really don't know where to put this thing. He took out a membrane bag that was used to seal small components. He placed the long wire inside before handing it over to Luonan. Luonan didn't know how many times he had expressed his thanks. He carefully extended his hand to receive it. More than a dozen cold eyes fell on him. He had undoubtedly become the most unpopular person in the Precision Electronics Interest Club. Luonan didn't care about this at all. At this very moment, there was only this thin thread in his eyes. 10 minutes later, Luonan walked out of the society's main hall. He held his notebook in one hand and the plastic bag in the other. He was a bit absent-minded. He actually didn't know which side was heavier. The sun gradually slanting to the west fell on his body. It was warm like a gentle breeze. Luonan thought for a moment and raised his hand, letting the membrane seal receive the illumination of the sunlight. He narrowed his eyes. If he didn't do that, he might even be burned by the brilliant flowing lightning. The source of electricity was on a long line. Of course, it could also be said that the long line existed in a bright and blazing electric light. However, not a single person in the surroundings reacted strangely. Even if they noticed this side, it was because of Luonan's inexplicable posture. This electric light was like a burning wraith. It was like the long ribbon of cloud light that curled around Zhang Yingying's body. It only appeared on a mysterious and unfathomable level. Ordinary people couldn't see it, they couldn't hear it, and they couldn't detect it. Only in Luonan's eyes was it brilliant and dazzling. Luonan lowered his arm and his 5 fingers clenched together. He nearly broke the membrane seal. But the more he did this, the more he could feel the marvelous texture that came from the long line. It was completely different from its slender form. It was such a marvelous object that was hidden deep within the flexible e-ink screen. It was silent and there were no clues or hints, just like its previous owner. Such an inconceivable object came from that coward. Did he make it? Or did he obtain it through some channel? Why did he hide it in the flexible e-ink screen and send it back? Why wasn't there a hint at all? That coward. What in the world was he planning? Luo Nan's mind was in complete chaos. His mind was in a trance. He took a step forward and suddenly felt his knees go soft. He couldn't maintain his balance and suddenly fell forward. Oh my. Are you okay? Just as Luo Nan was about to fall, Xuelei caught up from behind and supported him. His face was filled with worry and doubt. What's wrong? I called you a few times just now but you didn't respond. Did something go wrong? Only now did Luo Nan remember that Xuelei was still waiting for him to go to the grade advisor's office. What time is it? For 50. It's this late. Luo Nan was shocked at first, but then he remembered that he had stayed at the maintenance center for at least 40 minutes. Wasn't it almost time? Fortunately, Xuelei was stubborn and had been waiting for him all this time. Then let's hurry up and go. Luo Nan took the membrane seal with the long needle and stuffed it into the cover of his notebook. He put it aside for now. He needed to calm down and organize his thoughts. Xuelei had been anxious to the point of hopping. But when he saw Luo Nan's body's performance, his center of gravity naturally shifted. I say, Nanster. Your body is a bit weak. You probably lack exercise normally. In my opinion, if you come to our Daoguan and train for a few months, you'll absolutely make a huge difference. Luo Nan stopped the campus trolley and pulled Xuelei aboard. At the same time, he used his wristband to design the shortest route to the grade advisor's office. His mouth smoothly replied, I have time. Then it's a deal. Luo Nan suddenly understood why Xuelei and Qin Xiaolin were a couple. The route was planned properly and with a bit of luck, Luo Nan and Xuelei practically stepped on the dot and entered the grade advisor's office. There weren't many freshmen who entered the school halfway through. There were even fewer who hadn't joined a society by the end of the month. However, the office was packed to the brim with a dozen or so people. Luo Nan and Xuelei were the last to enter. They originally wanted to hide in the back of the crowd, but Xuelei's size was truly eye-catching among the group of 15 and 16-year-old youths. Even Luo Nan was implicated. The last to arrive. Come to the front. The grade advisor, Li Mingde, was known as the Old Immortal. He was nearly 70 years old. He had pretty much reached the age of retirement. His body was maintained quite well. He was tall and thin with a sage-like appearance. He was usually reserved in speech and manner. He looked hard to get close to. Reality proved that this person was indeed hard to get along with. There was a slight commotion in the crowd. Luo Nan and Xuelei helplessly acted as targets and moved to the very front. Li Mingde used a stern gaze to cut Luo Nan and Xuelei's faces before looking at the others. This move of killing the chicken to warn the monkeys was indeed effective. The originally somewhat undisciplined students all tightened their bodies one by one, acting obedient. Acumen College didn't have a class teacher for the 7th grade and above due to the implementation of the class system. Instead, they arranged for professional advisors to be responsible for the students' daily lives, psychological construction and so on. It looked quite fashionable, but in reality, a considerable portion of the advisors still carried out the functions of the discipline master. They were in charge of discipline, evaluation and so on. Li Mingde was a typical representative. This person acted as if he was in a class. He first called out names and confirmed that everyone was present. Only then did he begin with a lecture. You all know why I called you here, right? Everyone was silent. No one spoke. Chapter 41. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Li Mingde's face darkened. Acumen College's society life is very important. It's fine if you didn't understand before, but after the society promotion conference on the 24th, can you still not understand? During the meeting, I told all of you to take this seriously and find a club that you like as soon as possible. Apply to join it and avoid having your credits deducted. After so many days, most of the 100 or so participants have come up with a result. But what about you? He knocked on the table and the sensor activated a simple AR device, displaying a list of information. Shuelei joined the traditional martial arts club on the 25th, then quit? Their skills are too crude. Shuelei tried to explain, but Li Mingde glared at him fiercely. Luonan also cast a glance. He felt deep admiration. Then it was his turn. And you, Luonan? You said that you would participate in the interview for the Mystic Arts Research Society on the 27th, but you didn't go. He skipped classes for the entire day. Luonan opened his mouth wanting to explain, but in the end he shut his mouth. He just stood there quietly. One by one, Li Mingde pointed out the other people's failed or even blank club experience. In the end he sneered, "You guys are very calm. I've already said it during the club promotion meeting. According to the school's rules, the total credit for a club is 24 points for 3 years. Each year 8 points will be deducted. If you don't join a club, all 8 points will be deducted. Let's do the math. How many additional courses do you need to take to make up for the gap?" To the students, this was the most realistic problem. After all, a main course only gave them 4 credits a year. The gap between 2 main courses was enough to wipe out most people's year's worth of hard work. At that moment, there was an uneasy commotion in the office. It seemed that the school was serious. This was too different from their previous school. At this moment, Li Mingde gave them another heavy blow. The final deadline for new students to join the club is September 30th. Today is the 28th. I still have time, right? But I have to remind you that tomorrow is the weekend. Most clubs won't be accepting new members. A bunch of people lowered their heads to look at their watches, and then their faces turned ashen. Love, go, small, say, Netku. The club activity would end at 6 o'clock, but it was already 5:20 now. In other words, even if he turned around and left now, he would have less than 40 minutes to find a club, apply for membership and go through the procedures. This was assuming that the club was willing to accept him. Someone immediately screamed, "Isn't he dead for sure?" Shuelei and Luonan glanced at each other. They discovered that this situation was extremely similar to what Chen Xiaolin had warned them about. They lowered their heads and played dead. Li Mingde waved his hand when he saw the group of people who were either lifeless or devastated. "Whether it's the school or me as a consultant, I've already fulfilled my obligation to inform you. As for the choices you've made, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself. Right, time is running out. If you still want to save your credits, hurry up and work hard." Hey, that's it? Aside from Shuelei, who withdrew from the society on his own, and Luonan, who was a special case, most people had introverted personalities. They were irresolute and indecisive. Add to that the fact that they were 15 or 16 years old and inexperienced, and they were already out of their wits after a few rounds of bombardment. What freedom of choice was this? The group of people looked at each other. No one dared to move. Some of the more timid ones were already on the verge of tears. Luonan and Shuelei, who originally wanted to withdraw, found it embarrassing to move again. This lasted until a person with a bit of a flexible mind opened his mouth and stammered. Then consultantly, "It's already this time. We won't make it in time no matter how fast we rush. Can the school make some arrangements? The school won't interfere with the students' freedom of choice." Li Mingde continued to emphasize the word freedom of choice and ignored him. The young man became anxious and began to speak indiscriminately. "But you're the consultant. Shouldn't you help the students solve their problems? You little brats, you want me to take the lead at this time?" Though he said this, Li Mingde's stern face still softened a bit. He leaned back in his chair and muttered to himself for a moment. "How about this? I'll give you guys a suggestion. It's just a suggestion." No matter what came out of his mouth, the students who were in desperate straits were able to accept it. A suggestion is fine. A suggestion is fine. With one person taking the lead, many people responded. The office soon turned into a field of chaos. Li Mingde shook his head and extended his hand to point at the group of students. "Actually, I'll just say one thing. It's hard to avoid being a bit more realistic at times like this. You guys don't even need to think about societies with great fame and resources. Individual interests and specialties also have to be put aside. Everything has to be done with the goal of joining the society. First, you have to ensure that you have a place to stay. The group of young people thought about it for a bit and felt that it was reasonable. They all said, "That's right, that's right." Then you can only choose those that are less popular and have less direction. These societies often have limited activities and resources. You guys might have glanced over them before, but this time you can't care about it. Li Ming decide. To put it bluntly, saving your credits and ensuring the quality of your studies is the most important. This is my suggestion. You guys have heard it. Now hurry up and do it. The dozen or so young people looked at each other. It sounded reasonable, but it was a bit too general. Li Mingda saw the expressions of the group and laughed. I've already said it this much. What else do you guys want? Do you feel that there isn't enough time? How about this, I'll give you guys a backdoor. If you feel that you really can't choose in half an hour, then add another night. Tomorrow before 8 o'clock in the morning, contact me and tell me your choice. I'll try to communicate with those societies and arrange a reply or an interview for you guys. You can't be any later. Any later and I won't be able to arrange it. Plus, I can't guarantee success. An extra night of time to think was obviously good, but the problem was that it wasn't reliable. Someone revealed a bitter expression. Advisor, there are over 4,000 societies in this school. Can't you draw a range or something? Do you think this is a final exam? Li Mingda glared at him and pondered for a moment. He knocked on the table and the AI office system switched the interface. A string of society names appeared according to the conditions he had set down. There were 30 to 40 societies. I've searched a few in the administrative system. You guys can take a look. The crowd squeezed forward and Shuelei, who was at the very front, swept his gaze over and laughed. Cannibal Potted Art Interest Group? Hazy Female Poetry Psychological Research Society? Nebula M31 Advanced Life Telepathy Society? What the hell? Luonan didn't join in the fun. He was dizzy from being squeezed by the crowd, so he took advantage of the crowd to retreat backwards, temporarily hiding in peace. The matter of school credits and societies were admittedly important, but most of his brain was still stirring with that long electric wire. He unconsciously took out the membrane bag and stared at it in a daze. And at this time he saw that the electric wire had already pierced a small hole through the bag. Half of it was exposed and it appeared to be sharper than he imagined. The material is indeed special. But how could this be a problem with the material? Luonan finally pinched the long wire in his hand, but he was stupefied in the next moment. This was the first time he made contact with it without any obstacles. The long wire felt excessively slender to the touch, but there was an inconceivable temperature that seeped into him. He carefully savored it. It was neither hot nor cold, but it was like a numbing electric energy. It was guided from his fingertips and instantly spread throughout his entire body. His body didn't do anything, but the long wire that fluttered with the breeze in the room suddenly sprang straight. It was like an extremely tough needle trembling back and forth. Luonan was immediately stupefied. He didn't know what kind of principle this was. His wristband vibrated slightly during his puzzlement. A phone call came in. He instinctively extended his hand to press it, but he forgot about the long wire that was trembling at his fingertips. He pushed it forward, and the front end of the long wire made contact with the side of his wristband. Unexpectedly, there was no sound. It pierced straight in, and half of its length of 7 or 8 centimeters went in an instant. And at this moment, electricity ran through Luonan's hand. His fingertips went numb and he couldn't hold it for a time. He watched helplessly as the remaining half of the long wire drilled in. It was like a living creature and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chapter 42. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Luonan stared blankly at all of this. He was completely unable to stop it. Probably because it was pierced by the long thread. The interface of the bracelet that lit up instantly became chaotic and then the screen went off. But the screen lit up once more in less than half a second and returned to normal. There were still incoming calls and there were still vibrating reminders. But Luonan noticed that the style of the interface was clearly different from before. Furthermore, he looked strangely familiar. He stared at the interface of the wristband in a daze until Shuelei walked over and reminded him, "Hey, the phone." It was as if Luonan had awoken from a dream. Only now did he truly see the message of the communication number clearly. His eyelids twitched and his first reaction was to block this fellow. In the blink of an eye, the first round of tremors had just ended, but right after that, the second round came. Luo Nan let out a breath and answered the call. In the next moment, a hearty, friendly and magnetic voice came from the bracelet. "Brother Nan, it's me, Xia Junping. I know which one you are." Luo Nan really didn't want to pay attention to this person. From yesterday until now, more than 30 hours of torment, as well as the subsequent troubles that could be seen and not seen, all stemmed from this fellow's outrageous behavior. If this bastard dared to immediately show himself, Luo Nan would absolutely be happy to do some experiments on his body that were normally inconvenient. Luo Nan wouldn't even blink. However, Xia Junping's shamelessness had reached a new level. Seeing that Luo Nan was silent for a moment, she immediately apologized profusely. I'm really sorry. Junior Nan, yesterday's matter was all on me. Actually, I should have contacted you last night, but because I had to prepare something, I didn't have the time to talk about it in detail. How about this, I'll go to school right now. Junior Nan, where are you? Let's meet up and I'll apologize to you face to face. Xia Junping affectionately called Luo Nan little brother Nan, but Luo Nan had goosebumps all over his body when he heard it. This fellow must have pondered for a long time on how to address him before coming up with such an answer. Luo Nan really didn't want to be involved with this sort of person. He responded in a lukewarm manner. Senior, there's no need to be so polite. I have things to do over here. What is it? Do you need help? I'm free today so I can still lend a hand. Luo Nan shook his head as he listened. Can't you show some of the arrogance of a rich second generation? Wagging his tail like that, anyone would know that he had ulterior motives. Strangely enough, Xia Junping's words were filled with nervousness. Could it be that he was still worried about that trivial matter being exposed? It didn't matter if it was the nightclub or the fated one. Luo Nan's understanding of Luo Nan's lower limits would be refreshed if Luo Nan didn't handle this matter well. It's nothing, I can handle it myself. Right now Luo Nan was completely convinced by his older cousin Mo Ya's words. Getting entangled with this group of rich kids was bound to not have any good consequences. Li Xueqing was like this and Xia Junping was more or less the same. However, Xia Junping's pestering skills were also first-rate. Efficiency. Why drag it out to an hour when we can finish it in 10 minutes? Where are you? Can you share your coordinates? I'll go find you. Luo Nan frowned, but he instinctively glanced at the interface of his wristband. The screen that had darkened during the call automatically lit up, displaying a small and exquisite interface. It was indeed different. Previously, Luo Nan's wristband interface had a classic automatically formulated theme. The color was white, concise and bright without any embellishments. But now the main color of the interface had changed to a space blue. There were fine stars decorating it and even the software icons had been replaced. The problem was that it was still so familiar. Aside from the slight difference in the layout, this was clearly the interface theme of his flexible e-ink screen. Damn it. The matter with the wristband interface was truly strange. Luo Nan felt that his brain wasn't enough to handle it. He didn't want to stay in the noisy office, so he called out to Shuelei and walked out first. Without a doubt, he was the first person out of this group of students to walk out of the office. Shuelei also wanted to follow, but he didn't know what the problem was. Li Mingda called him back and he walked back with a bitter expression. Luo Nan walked out, but it wasn't good to leave Shuelei behind. He stopped in the hallway outside the door and waited. Xia Junping was still chattering endlessly there. Hey Junior Nan. Can you hear me? Give me the coordinates. Coordinates my ass. Luo Nan's thought had just started when he saw the interface of his wristband change. It was the GPS setting area. The relevant coordinates sharing option appeared before his eyes. It was as if an invisible hand had completed the operation in an instant, skipping all the intermediate links. Luo Nan was a bit stupefied. Currently, voice control could achieve this kind of effect for smart devices. But Luo Nan was extremely certain that his mouth absolutely didn't spit out a single syllable. What was truly effective was his telepathic thoughts. Luo Nan held the thought of experimenting and moved his thoughts. Share. Sure enough, the relevant option lit up. Xia Junping was overjoyed on the other end of the phone. He hurriedly said, "I'll be there soon," and cut off the call. Luo Nan looked at the interface of his wristband in a daze. He had actually set up a portion of the data sharing between the wristband and the flexible e-ink screen. The interface's false labels were fine, but what was up with this telepathic control mode? Telepathic control wasn't something new, but the problem was that Luo Nan didn't carry any sensing equipment. The wristband itself didn't have this kind of function. Of course, Luo Nan clearly remembered that there was an extra long wire in the wristband before the marvelous change occurred. And at this moment Luo Nan suddenly recalled a certain person's words in the Precision Electronics Interest Society. Processor, storage module, signal transceiver module, sensor. You don't have any of them. Do you normally use this board as a mirror? Of course, the flexible e-ink screen wasn't a mirror. Luo Nan was using it very well. If this fact were to be established, then wouldn't that mean that the long needle possessed a processor, storage module, signal transceiver module, sensor, and other complex functions? Let's not talk about anything else, but in terms of storage and sensor, reality was impatiently verifying it for him. While Luo Nan was in a daze, students came out one after another from the office. Some walked hurriedly. Some let out long sighs of relief. But there was no trace of Shuelei. Finally, there was the sound of the door. It was Li Mingde who came out first. His expression wasn't too good. Shuelei came out after him. He saw Luo Nan and grinned at him. Li Mingde also saw Luo Nan. He still remembered this student who had avoided his good intentions and walked out of the office. His expression sank and he took the initiative to speak. "You're called Luo Nan, right?" Luo Nan was a bit startled and said, consultantly, "Have you chosen your society yet?" "Not yet." "Then hurry up. Don't dawdle." Li Mingde's tone was very firm. Luo Nan didn't know why Li Mingde was in a bad mood, but he didn't care. He just nodded in agreement. The problem was that Li Mingde became angry when he saw Luo Nan's careless attitude. He quickly transformed from the grade consultant to the head of the discipline department. "Also, you skipped class for the entire day yesterday. Your nature is very vile. You must write an explanation. Give the reason why you skipped class. You can understand it as a self-reflection. You must be clear about the facts and you must come up with a reason that can convince the teacher. Otherwise, it will be very hard to obtain a good evaluation for the 3 main courses and 2 auxiliary courses. The pressure in terms of credits will be even greater." Luo Nan didn't say a word. He just bowed to show that he understood. Li Mingde was especially annoyed by Luo Nan's silence, but he couldn't say much. He walked away with his hands behind his back with a calm expression. He walked to the entrance of the elevator before shaking his head and snorting, "Child." Luo Nan and Shuelei looked at each other. They were both helpless. "What did he call you for just now?" "It seems that there's some sort of fight club that wants to recruit me." He asked consultantly to help him ask and I replied. This was the same as hitting 2 nails in a row. No wonder he wanted to curse. Li Mingde was already 70 years old. He had the privilege of flaunting his seniority. Luo Nan and Shuelei didn't care about this. They prepared to leave from another place. The elevator door opened on the other side of the hallway and Xia Junping hurriedly came out. The corners of his clothes carried the wind. He didn't look sideways as he brushed past Li Mingde. Li Mingde was stunned. He wanted to greet him, but he saw Xia Junping sweep a glance at Luo Nan and burst into laughter. Junior Nan, you made me look for you." Chapter 43. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. After a whole day of recovery and preparation, Xia Junping had completely thrown away his drunken and lethargic image. Love go smalt said netku. At this moment he was a cheerful and easygoing young man. He chased after Luo Nan with a few steps. He originally wanted to give Luo Nan a hug or something, but he saw that Luo Nan had no such intentions. He could only shake Luo Nan's hand, not letting go. He shook Luo Nan fiercely. "Brother Nan, it's all thanks to you, all thanks to you." Luo Nan was unable to endure Xia Junping's enthusiasm. He pulled his hand out and took the opportunity to introduce Xia Junping and Shuelei to each other. Xia Junping treated Shuelei as a good friend of Luo Nan's. He was 120% cordial. After greeting them he asked, What business did you guys come here for? Is everything all right? Shuelei had also met Xie Junping once at the Society Promotion Conference. He had no impression of Luonan back then, but he still recognized Xie Junping, one of the main speakers. Without thinking too much, he answered honestly, "It's about the club. It's almost due, so Advisor Li is rushing us." Society? Consultant Li? Brother Nan, did you join? Xie Junping was shocked and turned his head to look around. Luonan was baffled by his reaction. He shook his head, "Not yet." At this time, Li Mingde had been watching from the entrance of the elevator for a long time. Seeing that Xie Junping's attitude wasn't right, he wanted to dodge into the elevator. However, as he was older, he wasn't that agile. In the end, he was caught by the corner of Xie Junping's eyes. "Hey, Uncle Li, I was in a hurry just now and didn't see you. Please don't blame me." Xie Junping called out in a loud voice. Li Mingde squeezed out a smile on his face. He had just reprimanded Luonan for a bit. It was hard not to feel guilty in his heart when he saw the exchange between Xie and Luo. He responded with a single word and waved his hand, wanting to leave. "It's fine, it's fine. You guys take your time. I have something to do, so I'll leave first." "Wait a minute, don't I have to look for you for the club's matters?" Hearing Xie Junping's words, Li Mingde hesitated for a long time but still strolled back. His face was smiling amiably, but his heart was really uneasy. Even though Xie Junping called him Uncle Li so intimately, Li Mingde himself knew that his title as the Great Advisor was nothing in Xie Junping's eyes. Not to mention his family background, Xie Junping's division of power and responsibilities in the Student Union and the Honor Society just happened to be the bane of his existence. As long as he wanted to be happy as an advisor, he had to serve the Xie family's eldest young master well. With great difficulty, he managed to move back. Relying on his old face, he smiled before saying anything. "Junping, you two know each other? Uncle Li, don't you know? This is my benefactor, my savior." Xie Junping grinned cheekily, but his tone was serious and would not be misunderstood. "Uncle Li, did you hear about what happened in the R&D district yesterday?" I know. But you don't know this. When it happened, I was on the viaduct next to me. When the earthquake happened, I fell down. If it weren't for little brother Nan risking his life to pull me back, I would most likely be a meat patty by now." "Oh, that was close." The more Li Mingde listened, the more nervous he became. Of course, he was nervous that he still had to maintain a caring expression. It was very uncomfortable. "Love go little Sage Netku." At this time, Xie Junping had already stuck close to him. "Uncle Li, this is acting bravely for a just cause and saving a life. We don't have banners or certificates of merit here. Take care of the credits. Don't say that my Xie Junping's rotten life isn't worth 2 or 3 credits. The corner of Li Mingde's mouth twitched. He didn't know how to respond. A few seconds later, Xie Junping was the first to wake up. "That's right, it's really troublesome for our school to apply for extra credits. I didn't think it through. Uncle Li, how about this? Let's put in some effort in the club. No matter what, I can't treat my benefactor unfairly, right?" Li Mingde felt as if he had become a doe, allowing Xie Junping to knead him as he pleased. Unfortunately, he still wanted to maintain the little bit of airs he had in front of his students. For a time, he could only say, "NN." Then it settled. Xie Junping forced Li Mingde to promise quite a few benefits. Only then did he send Li Mingde into the elevator with a chuckle and wave goodbye. He turned to look at Luonan and Shuelei with a wink. "It's done. Elder illustrious virtue is quite easy to talk to." Luonan and Shuelei glanced at each other. They both smiled wryly. Shuelei had a straightforward temperament, but he wasn't stupid. He saw that Xie Junping had rushed over to find Luonan for something, so he didn't get involved. He chatted a bit with Xie Junping and expressed his thanks. Then he said that he and his girlfriend were going to prepare for tonight's gathering, so he took his leave. Luonan also wanted to leave, but he had second thoughts. It would be better to clarify things today. He had to understand where Xie Junping's enthusiasm came from. There was no one else around, so Xie Junping spoke more openly. He moved closer and asked, "Li Mingde was acting weird just now. Did he make things difficult for you before?" Luonan laughed but didn't say anything. "I knew this old thing wasn't reliable. It's not like he's relied on the club to make money for a day or two. But there definitely won't be such a thing in the future. There are two types of teachers in Acumen College. One type is the teaching type. The other type is the nanny type. Li Mingde is the latter. Of course he has to pay for it. Now that he knows of our relationship, he'll be meticulous in every possible way. Xie Junping unconsciously brought out the boldness of a young master, but soon he thought of Luo Nan's dark hero moral standards. He was a bit embarrassed. Junior, just listen to me. Reality is, I understand. Luo Nan didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. Xie Junping seized the opportunity to start building relationships with large schools. I know that Junior Nan doesn't want to waste your energy on this matter. Zizi. Yesterday you saved my life and protected my reputation. It wouldn't be excessive to say that you've given me a new lease of life. From now on, Junior Nan, your business is my business. Let's not talk about anything else. Seizing connections in the school and sprinkling money in society are my specialties. In the future, if you need to solve any problems in the school or if you have any expenses outside, just say the word. I, your old bro, will blink my eyes and I'll tell you that I'm not raised by a human. Most of his words came out of his mouth, but there was still some sincerity. It was just that he spoke too much, making people unable to feel at ease. He might have lost his mind and spouted nonsense. In the end, both sides would be embarrassed. Luo Nan had a sense of propriety in his heart. He treated Xie Junping the same as before. Senior's words are too serious. Xie Junping moved closer and revealed a mysterious smile. Brother Nan, it's not my style to thank you with empty words. How about this? I'll take you to a place. Senior, don't misunderstand. Let's talk seriously. I came here today to truly express my thanks. My attitude is very serious. Junior, you must give me some face. Xie Junping grabbed Luo Nan's arm and brought out a stubborn attitude. It's not even 6 o'clock yet. The club activities haven't ended yet. Junior, give me a bit of time. If you're not satisfied at 6 o'clock, you can turn around and leave. I absolutely won't stop you. Luo Nan lowered his head to look at the time on his wristband screen. What entered his eyes was a sheet of pitch-black darkness. He tapped it again and a low battery prompt appeared on the screen. Then he entered a low-power standby state. The battery consumption was a bit fast. Luo Nan remembered that his wristband still had at least half of its battery left. Normally, it wouldn't be a problem for it to last for a month. The current situation clearly didn't make sense. He muttered to himself for a moment before he was forcefully pulled by Xie Junping into the elevator. Chapter 44. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Xie Junping had already prepared the car downstairs. Acumen College forbade all outside vehicles from entering. What Xie Junping prepared was only an electric sightseeing car. Just like the one that Li Xueqing was using in the hospital this morning. It seemed that this kind of car was the standard for the rich second generation in the school. Luo Nan's mind stirred a bit when he thought of Li Xueqing. He sized up Xie Junping with a bit of scrutiny. There was no reason for Xie Junping, who was in the same position as the Burning Wraith, to be exempt from the wantonly distribution of seeds by the Burning Wraith yesterday morning. Luo Nan still remembered that Xie Junping's emotions were on the verge of collapse at the time. This sort of intense negative emotions was precisely the Burning Wraith's favorite. However, from the looks of it, this fellow was completely normal. At the very least, there wasn't a demonic shadow leaping out from his body and screaming at Luo Nan to kill him. Xie Junping naturally didn't know that Luo Nan's thoughts had turned in an instant. He dragged Luo Nan into the car and personally acted as the driver. He drove the car to the northern district of the campus. Luo Nan sat in the front passenger seat and pondered for a bit. The mental plane vibrated, and the heavily chained crow extended out from between his eyebrows. It paused for a moment, then it continued to extend out, drawing close to Xie Junping's body. At the front of the chain, the red light of the abstract symbol flickered, almost like a demonic eye. However, what it observed and sensed was a darker and more profound level. Several seconds later, the red light abruptly increased in intensity, the light almost piercing into Xie Junping's body. However, the heavily chained crow let out a cry, forcefully suppressing this disturbance. There's something fishy going on. Luo Nan wasn't that surprised. After all, logically speaking, it would be strange if he didn't. Moreover, the one inside Xie Juanping's body was clearly far less mature than Li Xueqing's. It was still in a half-hibernating state, and was using Xie Juanping's qi and blood to conceal its aura. If Luo Nan were to use himself as a reference, this was probably the stage before he clashed with Li Xueqing on the warship yesterday. It had already been 2 days, yet it was still so stunted. Perhaps it was due to the host's personality? The chain circled around Xie Juanping's body a few times before slowly retracting. Wait. Luo Nan didn't act blindly without thinking. Ever since he had swallowed the other burning wraith, his understanding of his own abilities had deepened by a large margin. His thinking and application became more comprehensive. Currently, his abilities could be roughly divided into 2 areas. Part of it was the heavily chained crow, representing the power of the format of My Heart's a Prison. It was relatively restrained and like a stabilizing needle, it controlled and suppressed the abnormal changes inside and outside. The other part was an abstract symbol formed by the burning wraith, which could be shortened to wraith sign. This thing retained a considerable part of the functions of its original form. It was extremely invasive, like a ferocious beast foraging for food. Its senses were sharp and its appetite was greedy. From time to time it would want to do something big. At the present stage, the suppressive power of the chains was overwhelming. The wraith sign could only lie dormant and wait for an opportunity in the vast majority of circumstances. Only in especially intense stimulation such as the other burning wraith, the killing intent directed at Luo Nan, or the eruption of extreme emotions nearby, would the wraith sign be activated. Moreover, all of its actions were under the control of the chains. From this, Luo Ji clearly understood that his foundation lay in the heavily chained crow in the format, and that the wraith sign was just an application tool. When it came to tools, one had to carefully study their principles and usage. Xie Juanping was a pretty good reference. Well, it could be said that it was a small revenge. Luo Nan's mind stirred as the chains retracted. He commanded the chains to streak across his wrist, making noiseless contact with the wristband. The sealed enclosure of the electronic device was completely meaningless to the mental scan. The various devices inside were the same. Correspondingly, Luo Nan discovered that the resolution of his own senses had a limit. He could only have a rough sense of the internal structure of the wristband. It was extremely fuzzy. The only exception was that long thread. It was extremely eye-catching. Or perhaps it could be said that it was too dazzling. When it made contact on the purely mental plane, the dazzling radiance above the long thread was truly like lightning streaking across the night sky. Of Luo Nan's 2 ability modules, the wraith sign had no reaction whatsoever. As for the heavily chained crow, wasn't this a conducting wire? Luo Nan let out a muffled groan. He was caught off guard, and the lightning actually followed the heavily chained crow to hack into his brain from the space between his eyebrows. His body shook violently. What's wrong? Xie Juanping jumped in fright. It's nothing. Luo Nan rubbed his forehead, his expression odd. If one were to pick the best place in Acumen College, it would undoubtedly be the city wetlands that the school had deliberately circled when it was founded. As one of the green lungs of the city, this place was practically completely covered in vegetation. It breathed in and out fresh air at all times. And the slightly damp ground seemed to be able to permeate the gurgling sound of the long river that passed through the forest into one's blood vessels. Therefore, most of the beauty of Acumen College lay in the wetlands. Half of the beauty of the wetlands lay in the long river that quietly flowed through the forest. The long river divided the wetlands into the north and south banks. It also divided the tranquil and bustling areas. The bustling south bank's landmark building was the school's auditorium. North across the river was the lush wetlands jungle. Practically no traces of man-made structures could be seen at a glance. At this time of day, the south bank was like a weave of people, while the north bank was relatively quiet. Xie Juanping led Luo Nan into the jungle of the north bank. He seemed to be very familiar with the path. He was always able to pick the smoothest path among the small paths in the forest, and he continued to advance. At the same time, he gave an introduction. Compared to the south bank, the north bank actually occupies the majority of the wetlands. Many of the school's research institutes are located here due to the good environment. However, each one of them comes at an exorbitant price. Not only do they have to pay exorbitant taxes, but they also have strict restrictions on construction materials, infrastructure methods, and structural design. As for the degree of strictness, you'll understand when you look at the auditorium. Acumen College's auditorium was well known among the schools in the entirety of Xia City. It had an ancient Oriental architectural style with flying eaves and arches. It was hidden within the jungle and it was a part of the wetlands garden. However, the surface portion of the auditorium didn't have any practical functions. Its functional area was completely underground. Only in this way could it accommodate over 100,000 teachers and students attend the ceremony at the same time. The auditorium is in the wetlands. You still have to lie down. According to the regulations, no buildings are allowed to exceed 15 meters in height within the wetlands. In other words, it's a quarter of the height of Climbing Hill. The Climbing Hill that Xie Junping spoke of was across the river from the auditorium. Actually, it was just a small mound that was only 60 to 70 meters in height. Right now, the trees on the mound were like a sea. Green, yellow, and red leaves intertwined in a gorgeous display of colors. An octagonal pavilion stood on top of the mound, giving it a wide field of view. One could practically see the entire region. It was the most refreshing view. Actually, Luonan quite liked to go up there and gaze at the wind from afar. It was precisely because the scenery here was very agreeable to his heart that he had endured Xie Junping's suspense all this time. Xie Junping's mouth gushed without end. There aren't many places in the wetlands where buildings can be built. And no one can bear the crime of destroying nature. If one wants to achieve complete functionality, then one can only find underground space. But the problem is that the geological structure is within the scope of the wetlands protection. The south bank is a bit better, but digging 3 meters down from the north is against the rules. Those research institutes want to act pretentious, and that's bitter. Having said this, he winked. However, there are always exceptions to everything. Xie Junping extended his finger forward, letting Luonan look at the depths of the jungle. There was a corner of a certain building that sprouted dense branches and leaves. The first thing Luonan felt when he saw it was that it seemed very old. It was probably because the edges of the building had a rust-like color. It gave people the impression of roughness. Xie Junping beamed, "Don't look down on it. Gear, which is the building before our eyes, is an exception among the 39 research institutes and society buildings on the north bank." Chapter 45. Genius 1 second. Remember, if you want to go? Talk.net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Gear. Yes. The name is quite strange, right? But I feel like I won't be able to find a more appropriate description in a short amount of time. Xie Junping was like a hard-working salesman, but the results were mediocre. Luonan pressed his forehead lightly. He had already formed a habit of doing similar actions during this period of time, and it made his concentration less focused. The two turned around the natural forest wall barrier as they spoke. Soon they saw the front of the building. It was just like the impression they had just gotten. The outer wall of the building was a rusty red. It didn't look like any color of the surrounding natural environment. Instead, it looked like rusty metal with a bit of paint. The main body of the building was covered by the long vines and weeds of the jungle. The light in the jungle was gradually dimming, making it even harder to see the overall layout of the building. Xie Junping was a bit worried that this kind of exterior would give Luonan a bad impression. He rushed to add, "Less renovations have been done in the past 2 years. The environment is a bit messy, but the inside will definitely give you a pleasant surprise." Luonan didn't say anything. He just wanted to see what Xie Junping was up to. The two followed the small path overgrown with weeds and turned to the main entrance of the building. This place should have been a small plaza in the past, but it had already been taken over by the jungle due to the lack of people taking care of it. If the main entrance wasn't tightly shut, the long vines of the wetlands would have extended into the main hall. Right now, the entire building was tightly surrounded by the jungle. The small plaza was the best location in the vicinity, but it was still hard to see the entire building. Only now did Luonan realize, there's no one here? There was one last semester, but now it's just an empty shell. Xie Junping used his wristband to connect to the AI's authority. The metal main entrance of the building immediately lifted up, and the hall space inside automatically lit up. Xia Junping led Luo Nan through the door and explained to him at the same time, "This place currently belongs to the Order Club. It used to be a very active old club. I've even heard that it was established before the school was founded. During its golden age, it attracted the sponsorship of over a dozen of the world's top 500 rich people. It was extremely awesome. But there were too many rich people. It was troublesome. Especially after the first few old members graduated. The younger generation relied on their respective rich people and fought to their heart's content. The club was originally a good club, but it was forcefully turned into an Azura field. Hatred was tied into a dead knot. In 90 and 93, two major incidents occurred consecutively, and the nature of the incidents was very bad. The school banned the recruitment of new members and the club collapsed in an instant. At this moment the two of them walked into the empty hall. The square layout could not be seen here. The spiral staircase, the vertical elevator and the circular corridor divided the hall, but there was also a hint that it extended into a wider space. Xia Junping shrugged. The main structure of this building is the circle. That is probably why it is called gear. It was said that there were 15 main rooms, halls and a large courtyard that connected all the floors. They were all round, insanely round. You might feel a little dizzy at first, but you'll get used to it. Luo Nan didn't feel any discomfort. On the contrary, he was a bit curious. Xia Junping continued to introduce. The club has indeed reached its end in this generation. Actually, the qualifications to recruit new members were going to be restored this semester. But those idiots didn't court death. Last semester a financial problem occurred. All of the rich people withdrew from the club and the flow of funds was completely cut off. The old members left the club one by one. The few that didn't leave were all related to the case. They are still under investigation. Once their crimes are confirmed, the club will automatically disband. Xia Junping sighed hypocritically. The club hasn't even disbanded yet, and there are already people fighting to the death outside. Luo Nan was a bit surprised. This place is very popular? Of course. The club in the school has been eyeing the North Bank for a long time, especially gear. It occupies half a hectare. It is already one of the best among the clubs and research institutes. It was the most eye-catching building on the North Bank back in the day. Over the years, those rich people have added quite a few things to it. More importantly, this is the only location on the North Bank that can be dug deep. Of all the research institutes and club buildings on the North Bank, this is the only place that has enough underground space. In this aspect alone, there was no one that could compare. Those people are throwing money at each other right now. They're just short of ripping each other apart. Xia Junping's spittle flew everywhere as he spoke. The problem was that Luo Nan was completely indifferent to this sort of gossip. His face was stupefied. Xia Junping couldn't help but feel a strong sense of defeat, as if he was flirting with a blind person. He could only take the initiative to give a hint. Junior Nan, don't you want to know who will be taking over in the end? Luo Nan shot him a glance. The results haven't come out yet, right? There are only two left. The Construction Society and the Mystic Arts Research Society will take turns bidding. Let's see who can suppress the other. The results will come out in the next 2 days. I feel that the Mystic Arts Research Society has a much higher chance. The Mystic Arts Research Society. Luo Nan naturally paid more attention when he heard that it was the super club that he had misunderstood. Xia Junping's face revealed a strange smile. The Mystic Arts Research Society is going all out for the sake of obtaining this place. They have already promised to completely take over all the debts and personnel of the Order Club. Hehe. They don't even think about it. Even if everything goes smoothly, it will be next semester before they finish the process. But if no one takes care of this damned place, it will soon become ruins. When the time comes, it may not be worth the price. Junior Nan, don't you agree? What kind of logic was this? Luo Nan swept his gaze across the large hall. He confirmed that there was certainly an automatic cleaning system here. Perhaps there were even intelligent machines. There was practically no dust floating in the area that he could see. With this degree of maintenance, let alone half a year, there wouldn't be any unforeseen changes even if another 10 years passed. But Xia Junping's words were completely based on another objective. Luo Nan roughly understood. Xie Juanping's attitude was already completely clear when he spoke to this point. Junior Nan, you see, if you want to protect the assets of the club to the greatest degree, then you need someone to maintain this building and maintain basic operations. But the resources and connections of the Order Club are of the past. Aside from a pile of debt, there is nothing else. If you want to do this, then you need to spend the funds of the Student Council. If you calculate it down to a minimum of 100,000 a year, this is all a deficit. If there is a person who is willing to enter this already declining club at this time and spend his precious private time to carry out maintenance work for free. Moreover, he doesn't have any club activities to increase his connections. Oh my. That's a huge sacrifice. Junior Nan, this kind of person is hard to find. Your big brother has been worried about this matter for the past few days to the point that my hair has turned white. You see, can you help me solve this problem? Luo Nan looked at Xie Juanping's performance and was speechless for a time. But he was completely clear about Xie Juanping's intentions. This was probably a roundabout way to save the country. According to Xie Juanping's plan, Luo Nan needed to first join the Order Club, which was already on the verge of collapse, and become an official member. Then he would endure for half a semester. Then the club would merge and he would become an unshakable extra. He would enter the Mystic Arts Research Society. This was what Xie Juanping had already promised. This path looked quite good. Of course, it required a high-level cadre of the Student Council like Xie Juanping to take action. Only then could a club on the verge of collapse be able to go through the entire process and forcefully stuff a new student in. However, the Mystic Arts Research Society was backed by a large financial backer. It was also a circle of rich second generations. Would they really acknowledge Xie Juanping's crude shoehorning? At least right now, Xie Juanping was very confident. He chuckled as he pushed Luo Nan into the elevator. Relax, relax. I'm very familiar with that side. According to the people in the inner circle, they're really sparing no expense in this merger. I've already given them a heads up before. 1 or 2 people isn't much. Junior Nan, I'm not being unreasonable. If it weren't for yesterday's confusion causing you to miss your exams, why would we need to go around in circles? This damned place hasn't had a good time ever since Yen Hong's reputation was ruined and the research team was disbanded. They say that we're taking advantage of them. I'd even say that we're committing a crime. A certain name entered Luo Nan's ears and he stopped in his tracks. He suddenly turned his head. Which one are you talking about? You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.